in the cryptocurrency space. I am your host, Piter, joined as always by Ozzy. And there's a lot to get to, so let's jump right in. Please do your own research. This is not financial advice. So we had a big price pump with Bitcoin overnight. It got started late last night, but really picked up some steam. And I went to sleep wondering what the heck is going on? What's pushing this price? And apparently it was unfounded rumors that came out of Cointelegraph about Blackrock's Bitcoin spot ETF being approved. So they issued a tweet saying that it went through. Then they issued an apology. And they said, we apologize for a tweet that led to the dissemination of inaccurate information. It even says we are committed to transparency. They're doing an investigation that is currently underway, and we will share our findings once it's concluded in 3 hours, which it's been 5 hours and there's nothing come of that. But basically Bitcoin pumped all the way up to 30K and it's since come down. It's like in the 28K range right now.
It's 28.6 right now.
Yeah. It came out on Fox Business saying that BlackRock denied this and that kind of...
It was out on Reuters and it made it to the Bloomberg terminal, which a lot of people used to trade. So this was like... this leak went far. The misreporting didn't just stay on Twitter. It actually made it to some important places. And what's really interesting is it didn't actually pump the price that much. Over the weekend, we were sitting at 27. We pumped just shy of 3K and almost right back down to 28 for a while. And we're gained a little bit of upward momentum in the last few hours, but it's crazy. My theory still remains that it was a intern at Cointelegraph who needed to make rent. They had access to Cointelegraph Twitter and figured, let's place 100x long on Bitcoin and post this tweet.
Yeah, I saw a post on Twitter. It was a roll bit of someone who placed a bet on Bitcoin going to 30K. And hitting and winning like 2.5 million or something like that.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think...
Fun little tweet like that. But either way, it just shows that what could happen if an ETF is approved. And while it did come down, like you said, there's still some upward momentum. The market's sensitive. And if you want to put money in, you don't necessarily want to take it right back out because this news could come and there's reports 90% chance it's going to happen by the end of the year or early next year, so you don't want to miss out on this. So that could keep a little bit of pressure on the Bitcoin price staying elevated.
Yeah, I will add though that the fact that it only pumped 3%, like 30K, like 3K, about 3%, maybe 4%, shows something that Coinbase has also stated in the last few days. They stated that the market's already factored in the approval expectations of the Bitcoin spot ETFs in the price right now. And I think based on that price action, Coinbase isn't totally wrong. It shows there's a little bit of flexibility, but it doesn't show that there's necessarily a total, that it's not already priced in, because I would expect a much larger move if they were actually approved.
I mean, I'm kind of thinking the same thing, but it's really opposite in that, I saw that, it's already priced in, but it pumped up 3,000 and it came back down once everything was like, no one could confirm it, right? So it didn't get confirmed by anybody, the SEC or BlackRock, any of the major players involved. You think it stops at 3,000 if it gets confirmed?
I would say the fact that it petered out so quickly would suggest yes, except if we move into a higher liquidity environment. Like this was the most volume we'd seen since August of 2022, which is saying something. And it also, but it really didn't sustain. The minute there was any kind of doubt, it started faltering fast. And so to me, that suggests that there isn't as much necessarily upwards movement that could come. And I think some of the upwards movement that we're seeing right now that's being sustained isn't necessarily from this news. I think some of it is people lingering, finding out that, oh, this didn't actually happen. But I also think it's just the Grayscale case wasn't appealed by the SEC.
Yeah, we can get into that one because it's very connected to this story and just goes to the whole, 90% chance that this is going to happen. But yeah, Grayscale, they didn't appeal. What happens next?
Yeah. That's exactly. They chose not to appeal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if we got approvals, we're getting approvals tomorrow. A huge thing to keep in mind. Approvals, although I think are highly likely, and I think the market seems to be highly likely based on how they believed it. The Grayscale case is only just one thing that helps in that direction, and really it states that the SEC has to come up with a new reason and a valid reason to deny the approvals.
Right, so what you're saying is just because they didn't appeal it, it doesn't mean that they can't find a new way to reject it.
Exactly. They just need to find a new way to reject it, and that's why they keep delaying. Everyone has been seeing it every time it's delayed. They're not rejected, they're delayed. And they ask questions and clarifications because basically they lost the Grayscale case because their reasoning was flimsy and they didn't really have solid evidence to back it up. So now they're requesting information, they're asking questions, getting comments to try and build. They could be trying to build the case to say no. And people need to understand that just because they lost doesn't mean they can't reject again.
Right. They can't. It's possible they reject all of them, and Gary pulls the rug on the whole Bitcoin market.
Absolutely. Do I think
it's
that's
still within the realm of possibility?
Yeah. Do I think it's the likely scenario? No. Is it a possibility? Yes. And people need to be ready. Are you still bullish on Bitcoin heading into 2030 or 2025 if we don't get the approvals right away? Yes? No? Think about that. Make your decisions. I know I am. And so I will be looking at strengthening my position with Bitcoin, but I do think that some of the hype right now I've seen so many stories of Bitcoin gets approved, Bitcoin spot ETFs get approved tomorrow, and I'm just like, no, they don't.
Well,
there's still that 90% chance.
Yeah, just to add on to that a little bit before we wrap. James Seyfarth, he's from Bloomberg Intelligence, basically what will likely occur is dialogue between Grayscale and the SEC, and we'll get more information next week, and we'll know a little bit more about what's going to happen. So kind of a wait and see, and all eyes on Gary a little bit right now.
Absolutely. Just like all eyes were on us last week, we had our second most viewed video ever. So thank you to all of you viewers. And
yeah, thank you.
If you are tuning in again after finding our videos last week, please consider subscribing or dropping a like and sharing this video with your friends. It really helps the channel grow and helps support us content creators and keeps us motivated to keep bringing you guys this news.
All right, well, let's jump into the macro. You were talking about one of the reasons why Bitcoin struggles to pump is just the lack of liquidity in the market, and part of that, the Federal Reserve and everything they're doing. We had a CPI print with inflation, proving to still be stubborn. We had the September meeting minutes that got released with a lot of careful, kind of the main word that we're seeing a lot. There's a lot of volatility still in the market. There's been some progress. While inflation has come down a little bit, that last 1-2% is the hardest to, so don't overreact. But there's no one screaming, okay, we're done. We're going to start pivoting lower. It's either steady or a raise seems to be the consensus.
Absolutely. Looking at last week's data, PPI came in, interestingly, it was PPI year over year was hot compared to last month, coming in at 2.2% compared to 1.6%, but core PPI came down to 2.8 compared to 3% year over year compared to last month. So some interesting numbers there coming in above expectations in general. while it matched expectations on core. Looking at CPI, CPI came in hot for month over month, coming in at 0.4 compared to a 0.3 expectation, but came down compared to last month of 0.6. Core CPI matched expectations and matched last read of 0.3. This is kind of interesting and relatively good news, but CPI year over year is still 0.1% above expectation at 3.7 compared to 3.6, and still 1.7% above the Fed's target rate of 2% long run inflation. So you still got almost 2% to knock out of CPI. And on top of that,
then we also, a couple of weeks ago, we had the job numbers that came in pretty strong. I mean, there's a lot of part-time jobs compared to full-time jobs going down. So maybe that's just a day. You know, it seems like the job market gets hit. It takes a while for that one to happen. But it's not falling apart yet. So they still don't necessarily have that pressure to pivot because of wrecking the economy as far as jobs go, too.
Absolutely. And this is actually a really important piece too, is that core CPI year over year is at 4.1%, down from 4.3% last month, but it's higher than normal CPI year over year, which is not a good thing. Core CPI is generally supposed to be considered stable and your more long run services less volatile. So the fact that that's sitting at a 4.1% year over year inflation is really not good. It means that it's not just in food and energy. 3.7% they could write off as that just being the volatile food and energy categories. But when core CPI is actually sitting higher year over year than regular CPI, they know that they can't pivot anytime soon, especially when you've got strong job numbers. Looking into this week, we've got big pieces of data. On Thursday, we've got GDP coming in. Previously, it was 2.1%. We'll see what it comes in this week or for this quarter. We've also got Jerome Powell speaking on the 19th, and we have PCE data coming out on the 27th. Those are kind of three big data days before our next FOMC meeting, which is on November 1st. And expectations right now, 15 days out from the meeting, are that 90% say we're going to stay stable, while about 10% say there's a chance to rise.
No one's calling for a cut.
No one's calling for a cut right now, and expectations have risen towards it being stable this month compared to a month ago. But everyone's not thinking about a cut right now. And looking into December,
it's interesting. If you look at the next meeting, December 23rd meeting, there's a 30% chance of a raise and still no cut. Like 6.
Actually, 33%. If you look, if you consider,
right, fair, yeah.
There's about 3% of people that are expecting a half point raise at the next meeting. Yeah. We're looking at 1/3 expecting a raise of some sort, and 2/3 expecting no raise right now. And these numbers have actually increased over the few weeks. Most people were originally not expecting a raise in December, and it's now shifted more and more towards a raise in December. Long run trends right now, we're seeing more analysts factor in not even expecting cuts heading into May of next year, with about 35% of analysts expecting cuts, and that's only of a quarter basis to a half basis. So that's not major cuts, right? And that's for 5 meetings from now. So that's pretty to look at. So that's definitely having an impact on what price can do with Bitcoin.
It's kind of steady as we go in terms of the liquidity situation in the market. It doesn't look like it's going to change overnight. But what's interesting is the change that's foreseen kind of goes in line with, which always kind of fascinates me a little bit.
Absolutely. But we are still seeing some pretty strong interest in Bitcoin from consumers. Paxful, which is a peer-to-peer Bitcoin trading platform, recently announced an option to buy and sell Bitcoin via Costco Cash Cards. and they had been traditionally used stuff at Costco stores or online, and with this new integration, it sold out of Bitcoin in hours. So pretty interesting to see full and this adoption of Bitcoin.
Yeah, Costco also did something where you could buy gold too. So kind of interesting what they're seeing in the market and the kind of product. I mean, this is from Paxful, not necessarily from Costco, but still interesting to see. I mean, Paxful, you can use different gift cards to get a hold of some Bitcoin, which is really interesting. I've never used Paxful, but just the concept is interesting. But yeah, now you can use your Costco card and get a hold of some Bitcoin, which is cool. Maybe not a big deal right now, kind of use, but when the attention is back on the market, it might be an important,
Yeah,
a lot of people use Costco.
Could be just an easy way for people who maybe don't have a lot of spare cash, but want to get access to Bitcoin and go to Costco to use their Costco cash money. So
it's a big. I don't know if there's Costco in.
Oh yeah, we got.
Don't worry. It's a huge. It's out here. You know what I mean? Everybody loves their Costco.
Oh, absolutely. When one went up about 15 minutes from where my parents live, it got busy fast. Everyone started going to Costco and getting their Costco cards because it was close and there was some decent deals. So
do they sell gas there too?
Oh yeah, every place for gas.
Cheaper gas, yeah, cheapest gas. Yeah, I mean it's cool adoption. We also have a story out of California in terms of Governor Gary Newsome greenlights crypto bill set to go into effect 2025. He has approved a cryptocurrency bill that enforces stricter regulation on businesses conducting crypto operations set to begin 2025. The bill is titled the Digital Financial Assets Law and make it mandatory for both individuals and firms to attain a Department of Financial Protection and Innovation license to engage in digital assets business activities. The new crypto bill will allow this DFPI to impose stringent audit requirements on crypto firms and force them to uphold recording requirements. Firms not complying with the bill will face enforcers. A little bit unclear 100% means. It's a big bill and it's not in it. Firms do have time till 2025, but it's a lack of regulation from the federal government could lead to this bill having influence on how the industry is regulated. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of stories that come out of this bill moving forward.
I've heard it's pretty tight in terms of it's not even as flexible, and as flexible, I'm being pretty generous with the European. The MiCA bill is, there's some flexibilities within the European bill, but I've heard that California's proposals more strict than that, and so it'll be interesting to see if it maybe drives even more innovation outside of California and Silicon Valley in terms of blockchain. Maybe continue that drive towards Texas.
Well, California is known for kind of that end up influencing the federal government just because it's such a large economy. And California, if it were its own nation state, would be like the 7th largest nation in the world. Something crazy like that.
Oh, absolutely.
So it has like it can have a huge influence. So it'd be interesting to watch how this unfolds.
Absolutely. With that being said, Argentina, a pretty big influence within the South American system.
Yeah, with crazy inflation down there.
Oh, ridiculous inflation on the Argentinian. Have their elections going right now, their presidential elections. And Milei, who we've talked about previously on the show, is currently in the it's a race between the top 3 candidates that suggest within 30 to 30% allocated to Milei, and he would need about 40 of the vote to win outright. He is a pro-Bitcoin candidate, but also more of a pro-US dollar candidate as well. He wants to abolish the Argentinian in exchange. So, interesting.
Yeah, and he's like very harsh against too. So I think he excites Bitcoiners in it's almost like he sees the US dollar as like a bridge to Bitcoin. Maybe. I mean, I think that's what excites Bitcoiners anyway.
Yeah.
Just because he's such a firebrand and kind of really doesn't like central banks. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know if you heard this story, but there's an establishment like the other guy he's really running against is just what is his name? Sergio Massa. So with this Milei kind of, they came out with a law abolishing income taxes for most people in the country. You got to make like pretty decent money to still get income taxes, which I thought pretty interesting and kind of shows how popular this guy maybe really is.
Yeah, it's interesting and definitely something to watch with what's going on in Argentina, and maybe we continue to see South America be the first movers on cryptocurrency and the adoption of Bitcoin as a currency. With that being said, someone's using Bitcoin for not so great use cases. They are currently inscribing it with many of WikiLeaks' infamous Afghan. It started. This is,
I think, a fascinating about, putting something immutable on the ledger. So it started off as a mysterious inscription on October 7th, but may end up turning into one of the largest global protests in support of Julian Assange, Verical. It's called Project Spartacus. It was formed in an attempt to immortalize on Bitcoin the classified information. So it's putting classified information on the blockchain, which could be viewed as an attacker, for FUD on Bitcoin blockchain if you put this kind of stuff on there. So controversial. But yes, the U.S. government has long alleged Julian Assange illegally provided this endless. But so the way it works is you can go to this website and it provides a public interface through which a person can inscribe a war log by donating money to this project. And there's tens of thousands of these war logs that are out there. Not all of them have been subscribed yet, but they do, and it's just pretty controversial.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting use of inscriptions, and maybe some of what we were talking about, soft wars, what data gets saved on and back to see who can get what the information they want saved on the blockchain immutably. But I think that excites us, makes Bitcoin and crypto have even more lighter
news. Moving on to a little lighter news.
Yeah, Ferrari is going to accept Bitcoin and Ether for luxury cars. This is following other news about Honda accepting cryptocurrencies for their cars. So this is starting in the U.S. with plans to expand the new payment option in Europe for the first quarter of 2024. So this is pretty big.
Definitely. Yeah, it made me think of what happened with Tesla earlier, because in 2021 they started taking Bitcoin payments. That was huge news at the time, like news. But then they retracted, which was also big news, and they said, "Oh, we have a mandate." And when there's confirmation of reasonable clean energy usage, 50% of energy used by miners was renewable, that they would begin accepting Bitcoin for their cars again. So it'd be interesting to see turn that around again.
That being said, Ferrari said they did this because of the amount of requests from the market and dealers from clients who had invested in crypto. So I guess someone made millions in flipping NFTs and has decided to buy their
win Ferrari instead of win Lambo, huh?
Yeah. Or Lambo's just decided to do it behind closed doors. Who knows? But Ferrari is using BitPay for the initial phase in the US and will also allow transactions in USDC alongside Bitcoin and Ether. So not as wide range of acceptance as Honda. Still, your top two right now. So super interesting. And then GMX. If you guys don't know about GMX, they're a perpetual option form, which basically allows people to speculate on the price of Bitcoin or other assets, trading them just like you would on a centralized exchange or like you would do with a broker for stocks. So they received the largest share of the $40 million worth of Arbitrum. So this was part of Arbitrum's first round of applications, and 29 projects were allocated funding of about 4.96 million ARB tokens out of about 100 that submitted proposals. So about 30%, just shy of projects were allocated. JMX is the recipient, while Camelot garnered the most votes. Finance, which if you don't know, it's one of the liquid stakers for, was the biggest project to miss out. Perps protocols, just like GMX, were the largest beneficiaries in the round, securing almost 44% of the total. DEX's second largest, capturing 15%, including Camelot, Kyber Network, Trader Joe, and Balancer. And I'm going to throw in a little tidbit on Trader Joe. Trader Joe is currently being sued by the grocery store brand. So the DEX recently started facing legal action from the grocery store brand after trademark issues around the name Trader Joe. So it'll be interesting to see if Trader Joe, the DEX, decides to change their name or they decide to...
I mean, that was just bound to happen.
Absolutely. I don't know why it's... so it's kind of interesting and funny and just lighthearted.
Yeah, lawsuits are the way of the land. That's how we set our press and all that stuff. So, but it's interesting to see brick and mortar kind of going up against something that's completely, so still an interesting story all the same.
So that kind of sums up our show for this week. We want to thank you guys for listening to Decentralized News, and remember to subscribe to catch our videos as soon as they drop. We aim to provide unfiltered content to help the space grow and not provide you with fake clickbait. This is not financial advice. We are not financial advisors, and the show is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. So thanks for your support, and stay tuned for our next episode.